I was working the night shift again. It was a few weeks ago. I'd been a taxi driver for 5 years, hoping my late-night rides would spark ideas for my film. Usually, it was quiet, but lately, I felt a pull toward the darker parts of the city. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was searching for something. That night started like any other. I drove through the neon-lit streets, passing diners and bars. I thought about the stories I wanted to tell, but something felt off. I glanced at the clock. It was getting late, then I picked up a passenger. She slid into the back seat, wrapped in a heavy coat. Her attitude felt strange. "Have you heard about the unmarked grave in the city?" she asked, her voice shaky as I glanced in the mirror. Her eyes looked wild. "What about it?" I asked, trying to keep my focus on the road. She leaned forward, the cold air of her breath seeping into the cab. "People disappear there. They say the ground whispers at night. You can feel it." A shiver ran down my spine, but I tried to brush it off. "Yeah, right," I said, keeping my eyes forward. But she kept talking, her words wrapping around me like fog. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. Then, just like that, she stopped speaking. It got quiet in the cab. I looked up and saw nothing in the rearview mirror. She was gone. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. Just chill air swirling through the cab. I felt my hands shake on the wheel. Had I imagined her? I was just tired, right? I pulled over and gripped the steering wheel. I didn't know whether to laugh or panic. My mind kept replaying her story. I could feel something lurking in the city, and I didn't like it. The next night, I picked up another passenger. A woman said she saw shadows in her mirror, dead faces staring back at her. My chest tightened. Then a man shared how a figure haunted him, following him home every night. Vague memories of a child's laughter echoed from the shadows of the street. But there were no children around. Each story pulled me deeper into fear and curiosity. I questioned what was real anymore. Was it the city messing with my mind? Or were these just tales from crazy people? Last night felt different. I was at a red light when I saw a figure staring from the darkness. The child's laughter rang again, clearer. It chilled me. "Why are you with her?" the voice asked. I turned around in a panic, but the back seat was empty. My heart raced, and I felt sick to my stomach. What was happening? Answers felt close but just out of reach. The city's secrets were out there, and I was somehow tangled in them. I had no idea what I'd stumbled into. What was waiting for me in those shadows? I needed to find out. The next night I drove, I felt heavier than usual. My thoughts were a jumbled mess. Each story from my passengers repeated like a ghostly echo in my head. The darkness seems to seep into my bones. I needed clarity, something solid in this swirling confusion. I noticed a distinct change in the way the city looked that night. The light seemed harsher, the shadows deeper. I stopped for gas, taking a moment to catch my breath. I scanned the tiny corner store for any distraction, but all I found were the old magazines and bags of chips. The cashier, a man with tired eyes, stared ahead blankly. I felt like I was the only one alive in that moment. After fueling up, I slid back into the cab, gripping the steering wheel. I decided to drive to the park. Even in the dead of night, I thought it might help clear my mind. As I turned onto the old, deserted road, the quiet felt almost wrong. It was too still. That's when I saw it. A figure out in the park, just standing there. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. My instincts screamed at me not to approach, but curiosity tugged harder. I parked the cab near a tree and stepped out, feeling the cool air bite my skin. I walked closer, heart pounding. "Hey, you okay?" I called out, my voice small against the vast emptiness. The figure turned slowly. A child, maybe 7 years old, with wide, dark eyes peering back at me. A chill ran down my spine. "Why are you here?" I asked, the question slipping from my mouth before I could think. The child seemed unfazed by my presence. "I'm waiting," he said, his voice soft and eerie. "For them to come back." "Who?" I asked, stepping a little closer, trepidation mingling with intrigue. He didn't answer directly. Instead, he pointed toward a clearing. "They whisper under the ground." Something pulled me toward that spot. The air felt heavy, and I thought I heard faint voices calling from beneath the earth. I shook my head, trying to clear the odd sensation. "What is your name? Why do you want to know?" He responded, tilting his head as if it were a game. "Because I want to help you," I said, searching for any hint of vulnerability in his expression. He grinned, but there was something unsettling about it. "You think you can help? Not everyone can go back." The weight of his words fell on me. I felt trapped in a strange web, threads of fear and confusion tightening around me. Suddenly, the memories of my passengers flooded back. The woman who saw shadows. The man haunted by a figure. Was this child connected to them? Before I could ask more, he took a step back. "You shouldn't be here," he warned, his voice turning serious. "They don't like it when people watch." Just then, the ground rumbled beneath my feet. I stumbled back, and the voice of the child dropped to a whisper. "You have to leave now." I turned, but my feet felt glued to the earth. It wasn't just the child's words, there was something dark hovering between the trees, watching me. I finally tore myself away and ran back to the cab, heart racing. I jumped inside and locked the doors, looking into the darkness. No sign of the child. I looked around, but all I could see were the shadows. I shut my eyes for a moment, trying to steady my breath, but instead felt the panic rising. That's when I heard its soft whispers, floating through the night air, merging with the city sounds. My fingers raced over the ignition. I needed to get out of there. I sped down the road, but the words lingered in my mind. I had stumbled into something deeper than I had imagined. What was waiting for me? I had to find out, even if it meant facing the darkness head-on. The air still felt thick as I drove away from the park, but it was different now. The shadows outside my cab seemed to close in, and the streetlights flickered as if they were struggling against the darkness. I tried to push aside the image of that child and the ground rumbling beneath me, but a knot tightened in my stomach. I needed to keep my mind off things. I turned on the radio, but the static seemed to blend with the whispers I had just heard. It was maddening. I finally switched it off, focusing on the road ahead. My thoughts raced back to the stories of my passengers. Each tale had some connection to the unknown, a glimpse into a world beyond what we could see. Had I crossed some line tonight, a few blocks down, I picked up another fare. A middle-aged woman got in, her face pale and drawn. "Can you take me home?" she asked, her voice shaky. I nodded, trying to gauge her mood through the rearview mirror. As soon as we hit the road, she started fidgeting, glancing quickly out the windows like she was trying to spot something in the shadows. "You okay?" I asked, sensing her unease. She hesitated, then continued, "I feel like I'm being watched." I swallowed, recalling my own unsettling experience just moments ago. "Yeah, I get that feeling sometimes." Her eyes widened. "You do?" "It's different for me. It's been following me for weeks now." I glanced back at her, intrigued. "What do you mean?" "It hides in the corners of my house, in the dark spaces. I hear it whispering my name." Her voice cracked, and I could see the fear gripping her. "Can you describe it?" I asked cautiously, hoping to keep her talking. She shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't know. But it's not human. It wants something." There was an intensity in her words that sent a shiver down my spine. I had wanted to understand, thought I could, but hearing her say it made everything feel too real. "Have you told anyone?" No, they won't believe me. They never do. I drove fast, the eerie night clinging to us as we passed familiar streets that now felt foreign. I pulled to a stop in front of her building, and she opened the door without a word. Wait, I called out before she could disappear. What should I do if I see it? Her expression was hauntingly vacant as she whispered, you can't see it, until it's too late. Just like that, she was gone. I sat there in silence, the engine's hum drowning out my racing thoughts. I replayed her words at once, something and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever lurked in the shadows was searching for me too. That's when my phone buzzed, breaking through my spiraling thoughts. I glanced at the screen. A message from my friend, Mike. You need to check this out. It's south about the park there, essay history you wouldn't believe. Curiosity and dread warred within me. I felt a sort of magnetic pull towards that revelation, but at the same time, a voice inside screamed for me to stay away. I turned the cab back toward the park, heart pounding. I had to know what was happening. Something was waiting, and whether I liked it or not, I was about to find out what that was. The park loomed ahead, draped in shadows that seemed thicker than before. I parked at the edge of the lot, my headlights illuminating the path before me. The place felt different now. My mind raced with the woman's haunting words and Mike's message. I stepped out of the cab, and the air hit me like a wave. It was cold and heavy, making my skin prickle. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but the tightness in my chest warned me that this wasn't just a casual stroll. As I walked toward the entrance, I noticed something odd. The swings, usually swaying gently in the breeze, were perfectly still. The playground equipment stood like sentinels, watching. I pulled out my phone, hoping to find something on the park's history, but the reception was terrible. I sighed, pocketing my phone as unease coursed through me. Maybe I'm making this worse, I muttered, but something urged me onward. I approached the dense trees that bordered the path, feeling the darkness of the woods pulsate with life. My thoughts were interrupted by a sudden rustle, startling me. I turned, scanning the area, but saw nothing. Just shadows moving lazily in the dim light. Then, from the corner of my eye, something flickered. I turned my head sharply. Was it a trick of the light? Or perhaps the remnants of the child I had seen earlier? My heart raced. I was about to take a step forward when a sound made me freeze. It was a low, whispering echo that seemed to slither through the trees. Help me! It felt as though the air itself was vibrating with the voice. I hesitated, instinct screaming at me to leave, but curiosity clawed at me to stay and listen. I edged closer to the source, my breath shallow. The whispers grew louder, more distinct. Help me find him who? I whispered back, almost without thinking. Suddenly, the whisper stopped. Silence enveloped me like a blanket. My heart pounded loudly in the stillness, each beat echoing in my ears. Then, faintly, I saw movement deeper within the trees. That's when a figure stepped into the light, a boy, maybe 8 years old, pale and expressionless. He looked up at me, eyes wide but empty, and my stomach dropped. Have you seen him? He asked, his voice small and fragile. Who? I managed to choke out. I felt like a deer caught in headlights, unable to run away. The one who plays here, he said, glancing back towards the shadows. He is lost. Before I could ask more, a ripple of wind blew through the trees, and for a moment, I thought I saw hints of movement behind him. It sent a chill up my spine. What do you mean lost? I pressed, but he didn't answer. Instead, he pointed behind me, where branches swayed in a way that felt wrong. The air grew colder, and the night deepened. My heart raced as I turned to look. That's when I felt it, a presence, an unmistakable weight in the air, pressing down on me. Panic rose as I realized I wasn't alone. Run! The boy's voice pierced through the suffocating quietness, breaking the spell that held me. I pivoted, sprinting back to my cab, fueled by pure instinct. The whispers returned louder, more furious as I fumbled for my keys, my hands trembling. In that moment, I knew I had crossed the threshold into something I couldn't understand. But I had to escape. That darkness was hungry, and I could feel it closing in. Then everything went dark. I gasped as I came to. My eyes fluttered open, the world around me a blur of darkness. Panic surged. I was still in the park, but it felt different, like a thick fog had rolled in, shrouding everything. I pushed myself up, my heart racing as I tried to get my bearings. The cab was gone, replaced by an overwhelming stillness that draped over me. "Hello." My voice came out shaky, swallowed by the shadows. I stood up, my legs unsteady, and looked around. There were no swings, no playground. Just trees closing in on me, their twisting branches clawing at the air that I stumbled forward, the ground unsteady beneath my feet as I fought to remember how I had arrived here. Hadn't I just been at my cab? I clenched my fists, trying to shake the confusion out of my mind. That boy's face flashed in my mind, the blank stare, the urgency in his voice. "Where are you?" I called out into the darkness, hoping for a response. The trees rustled, but this time, there was no answer. Instead, a shiver ran down my spine. I could feel eyes watching me from within the dark. Then, a flicker of light in the distance caught my attention. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat, flickering ominously among the trees. I hesitated, but the urge to find out was stronger than the fear gnawing at my chest. I began to walk towards it, my feet crunching over twigs and fallen leaves. As I approached, the light intensified, revealing a small clearing. There, on the ground, was a toy, a faded red ball, half buried in the dirt. I picked it up, the plastic cool and oddly comforting in my palm. "Is this yours?" I whispered, glancing around for the boy or anyone who might answer. The silence was deafening, and I felt like I was being pulled into a whirlpool of anxious thoughts. Before I could fret too much, I heard a sound: laughter. It was faint and echoed through the trees, playful yet eerie. The kind of laughter that melted into the shadows. "Come and play." I looked around, nerves on high alert. "Who is there?" I shouted, my voice breaking the stillness. My instinct told me to run, but my feet felt glued to the spot. The laughter continued, now mingled with the whispering I had heard before. "Find him. Help me." The weight of the air thickened once more, wrapping around me like a vice. I turned on my heel, the ball slipping from my fingers as I sprinted back towards the direction I thought I had come from. But the trees loomed larger, the shadows darker, as if the entire forest was conspiring to pull me deeper inside. That I ran, my breath coming in ragged gasps, desperately searching for anything familiar. Then, just as panic set in, I spotted a shadow moving ahead. It was small, darting between the trees, almost glowing in the dim light. "Wait!" I yelled, but the figure only paused briefly before disappearing again. That's when I saw it, a pair of eyes reflecting the dim light like two glowing orbs staring right at me. They were not just watching, they were hungry, and the laughter grew louder, echoing in my mind. I froze. I had to either confront whatever it was or continue running blindly into the dark. But the longer I hesitated, the closer the presence felt. "Help me." The voice washed over me again, and I knew this was just the beginning. I stood frozen, the shadows pressing in from all sides. The glowing eyes seemed to blink, almost teasing me. I took a hesitant step back, then another, barely breathing. But the laughter danced around me, growing closer. It sounded almost like a game, one I wasn't a part of. "Help me." The voice called again, but this time it was clearer, more desperate. It pulled at something deep inside me. My instincts shouted to run, yet I felt a strange pull to discover the truth. With shaky legs, I stepped forward, drawn by the flicker of the distant light. My heart pounded in my chest, but curiosity fought against my fear. "I'm coming," I called, my voice louder, more fierce. I couldn't back down now. As I continued deeper into the clearing, the laughter faded, swallowed by the night. I squinted into the darkness, searching for movement. It was eerily quiet, save for the rustling leaves. My eyes darted back to the glowing eyes, which shifted, drawing closer. Just as I was about to turn away, a flash of light erupted from the shadows. I gasped as not one, but several figures scurried forward, flickering like fireflies. They were no longer just eyes, they were small, human-like creatures, their faces pale and frantic. "Help him!" One of them screamed, pointing. "He is trapped." "Who?" I stammered, panic rushing through me. The creatures swarmed around me, their tiny hands reaching out, pulling me toward the thickest part of the trees. "This way!" Another chimed, urgency in its voice. I followed without thinking, my mind racing. They led me to a gnarled tree with roots twisted like fingers, half buried in the ground. Beneath it, I could see the outline of a small figure. Someone was trapped. My pulse quickened as the panic morphed into determination. "Hold on!" I shouted, dropping to my knees to clear away the dirt and leaves. The creatures pressed close, their whispers fueling my resolve. I dug with my hands, the cool earth slipping beneath my fingers. Then I felt something cold, soft. I pulled harder and revealed a small boy, his eyes wide and terrified. He looked just like the boy from my earlier thoughts. "Help me!" he cried, the same plea echoing in the air. "Why didn't you come when I called?" I asked, breathless from both fear and confusion. "I couldn't." He whimpered. "They won't let me go." My heart dropped. I could sense something dark creeping in on the edges of the clearing, a thick shadow that smothered the light. The creatures began to scream, darting away into the trees. I looked back at the boy, his eyes reflecting despair. "We need to get out of here." But before I could reach for him again, the darkness surged, and the air turned icy. The laughter returned, now a cacophony of sinister giggles. Suddenly, a loud crack split the air. I glanced up, and there it was. Something dark and massive was breaking through the trees, looming over us. That was when I knew I needed to choose. Fight for the boy, or flee for my own life. My instincts screamed at me the uncertainty of my next move, what awaited me in the shadows. "I won't leave you," I yelled, clawing desperately at the roots, but the darkness grew heavier, drawing closer, and then it all faded to black. I gasped as my eyes flew open. I was still in the clearing, but the air felt different. The shadow was gone, vanished as quickly as it came. Instead, I was surrounded by a chilling silence, broken only by the soft rustling of leaves. The boy was still there, but his face was pale and his expression agonizing. "Where did they go?" I whispered, unsure if I wanted an answer. "They're just waiting," he replied, his voice trembling. "They never leave for long." I could feel the weight of his words settle over me, and dread twisted in my stomach. "What do you mean?" "Waiting for what?" He glanced around nervously, biting his lip. "For someone else. They want to play." The thought forced me to swallow hard. I had already felt their game, and I didn't want to be a part of it. But I had a choice to make. I needed to know more, and I needed to get this boy out. "I'm not leaving you behind," I said fiercely, seizing his small hand. "Let us get you out, now." As I struggled to pull him free, the ground began to tremble. The earth felt alive, shifting beneath us as roots twisted tighter around the boy's body. I pushed harder, fear igniting my adrenaline. The creatures had retreated, but I could hear faint giggles in the distance, and with them, the sense of something now watching us again, something worse than before. "Help!" I cried, digging desperately. "Someone, please!" But only silence responded. The boy winced as the roots squeezed tighter, and I could see the fear blossoming in his eyes. Then something cold brushed against my neck, sending chills down my spine. I instinctively turned, but nothing was there, only the thick dark surrounding us. But I felt it. Something was behind me. Don't look, the boy urged, panic in his voice. It'll see you. Every instinct told me to run, yet I couldn't abandon the boy. So I risked a glance behind me. Shadows swirled, whispering secrets, twisting into grotesque shapes that formed a hulking figure. It loomed tall and vast, the very essence of night draped over it like a cloak. Go. Now. The boy screamed, pulling at my arm. I refocused on the roots, digging with everything I had left. My fingers tore through the soil as I fought against the darkness and the creeping fear that threatened to swallow us whole. The cold pressed upon my back, a chilling breath that urged me to give in, and then I felt something loose. I yanked fiercely, pulling the boy upwards. He emerged from the earth, gasping, and I pulled him close. We stumbled back, away from the tree, just as the shadow lunged forward. I barely had time to think as I dashed into the thicket, the boy and Toda. We rushed blindly, the laughter echoing behind us, growing ever closer. This way! He shouted, steering me toward a narrow path that sliced through the trees. The laughter shifted in pitch, the shadows slashing at our heels, but as we ran, a new sound erupted, a soft, rhythmic tapping that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. What is that? I panted, my heart racing. Don't stop! He cried, pulling me faster. They're coming. I had no choice but to keep moving, but the tapping grew louder, closing in on us. That was when I stumbled, hitting the ground hard. I turned, ready to push myself back up, but when I saw it, a figure stood at the edge of the clearing, perfectly still, watching us. I didn't know what it wanted, but I could feel the chill of its gaze. And then it spoke my name. Why did you stop? The boy's voice broke through my panic, his hand tightening in mine. I don't know. I rasped, trying to scramble back to my feet. That voice had sent a shiver down my spine. The figure at the edge of the clearing was cloaked in shadows, its face obscured. But I could see its eyes, glowing faintly like embers in the night. Run! The boy yelled, yanking me forward again. We stumbled into the underbrush, the laughter behind us swelling to a cacophony. My heart raced, matching the pounding rhythm of footsteps that echoed on the ground. The path twisted and turned, branches clawing at my arms as we darted through the thicket. I could hear the tapping still, relentless and almost musical. But in the back of my mind, that voice replayed. It knew me. Somehow, it knew my name. Where are we going? I gasped, trying to keep pace with the boy. What was that thing? He didn't answer, his expression tight with fear. The darkness loomed around us, encroaching further with each passing second. The laughter echoed above the tapping, mocking us, urging us to slow down. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see the figure pursuing us. But all I had was the darkness closing in like a vice. Please! I cried. You have to tell me. Finally, the boy faltered, slipping slightly on the wet leaves. There's a place, he said, his breath coming in quick bursts. A place where they can't get you if we can make it. Where? I asked, but he didn't answer immediately. He was scanning the trees around us, eyes wide, as though he could feel something creeping closer. There. He pointed to a massive oak with hollowed-out roots, protruding from the ground like an ancient fist. It's safe inside. Before I could protest, he raced toward the tree. I followed, driven by the instinct to survive. We dove into the hollow where the roots created a small cave-like refuge. The darkness wrapped around us, swift and suffocating, but it shielded us from the outside world. The boy collapsed against the wall, panting heavily. I pressed my back to the earth, trying to calm my racing thoughts. The laughter faded momentarily, replaced by an oppressive silence that filled the air. What is going to happen? I asked, looking at the boy. He was no longer the confident guide, fear marred his face, and I realized he was just as trapped as I was. They'll search for us, he whispered. They always do. They want to find what they lost. My stomach twisted at his words. What do you mean? He hesitated, eyes darting around the hollow as if expecting something to emerge from the darkness. They come for those who are left behind. They want to play a game no one wins. I shuddered, his words echoing in my mind. I felt the weight of dread settle over me like a shroud. What do I need to do? I didn't want to admit my fear. I wanted to be brave not only for myself but for this boy who had already endured too much. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, a cold wind gusted through the hollow, chilling the air. Did they find us? I whispered, panic rising in my throat. He nodded slowly, his expression grave. We both turned to the entrance, our hearts pounding in synchronized terror. I couldn't help but question one thing: what did they want with us? Just then, the tapping returned, louder than before, and I realized with a jolt that it was coming from inside the hollow with us. The tapping was faint at first, a gentle rhythm that seemed to echo in time with my heartbeat. But as I strained to hear, it grew louder, more insistent. I could feel the boy's trembling next to me. What is that? I breathed, the cold creeping into my bones as the sound echoed around the small hollow. I don't know. He gasped. His eyes were wide, reflecting a mix of confusion and fear. It shouldn't be happening. The darkness around us felt alive, an entity pushing closer. I scanned the small space, searching for an escape route if we needed one. But the roots loomed like bars, trapping us further inside. Are they already inside? I whispered, trying to keep the panic from overtaking my thoughts. The boy didn't answer, his eyes darting around the hollow, searching for something, anything to anchor himself. Then, as if responding to our fear, the tapping intensified and morphed into a soft scratching, like fingernails raking against wood. It sent me into a frenzy, scrambling to the other side of the hollow, a futile instinct to distance myself from the noise. Stay still. The boy hissed, grabbing my wrist. We have to be quiet. The scratching grew more frantic, accompanied by a low whispering that entered from the void outside. The words were indecipherable, but the tone seeped into my skin, unsettling my core. That's them, the boy said, voice trembling. They're playing their game. How can you know? I shot back, panic getting the better of me. We can't just sit here. We have to do something. His grip tightened on my wrist. If you make noise, they'll find us faster. It's safer to wait. And so, we waited, the silence thickening with every breath. I closed my eyes, imagining that the darkness outside could somehow be a protective veil instead of a danger. But hope faded quickly as the whispers rose and fell. The tapping shifted again, moving closer, circling us. I felt the boy's heart racing against my arm. There's a way to stop it, he murmured, though I could tell he was trying to convince himself more than me. We can't let them play. Play. I echoed. What do we do? There's a key, he said, his gaze turning toward the far wall of our hollow prison. We have to find it. Where? My voice was barely above a whisper now. They only show you the way when the time is right, he said through gritted teeth. But we must keep them at bay. Suddenly, the tapping halted as if cutting off mid-motion. My stomach dropped, the abrupt silence deafening. I looked at the boy, dread pooling in my gut. Did they leave? I ventured. No, he said sharply. They're just biding their time. Then I saw it out of the corner of my eye, something flickered in the shadows close to the entrance. My breath caught in my throat. That's when I saw it, I said, barely daring to move my head. The boy turned to follow my gaze, and I felt our hearts race in collective horror as the whispers returned, louder than before, wrapping around us like a cold embrace. Stay close, he warned, the spark of determination returning. Whatever comes, we face it together. The tension in the hollow pressed down on us as darkness twisted and swirled around our sanctuary. I clutched the boy's hand, my pulse echoing in my ears, and focused on the slivers of light filtering through the roots above. The scratching returned, low and persistent, a reminder that whatever lurked in the shadows was getting closer. "What do we do now?" I asked, my voice trembling. The boy's expression flickered with determination. "When the time comes, we have to find the key," he whispered, glancing nervously at the entrance. "It will guide us out." I nodded, my heart racing. "How do we know when it's time?" His eyes darted around the hollow. "When the whispers change, when they become clear, we'll see." A heavy silence enveloped us again. I could feel the air thickening, as if the darkness had a sentience of its own. It felt wrong. I dropped my gaze to the ground, searching for any sign of what we might need the key, whatever that could mean. Then it came, a sound like 1,000 murmurs converging into a single exhale. The whispers grew more distinct, swirling around us, as if stirring the shadows into a frenzy. "Help us," I heard clearly now, haunting echoes that felt almost like a plea. "Get ready," the boy hissed, eyes wide as he leaned closer. This might be it. A surge of energy coursed through me, equal parts dread and resolve. "What if it doesn't work?" I asked, desperately wanting to believe we could escape this nightmare. That he didn't answer. Instead, he focused on the shadows flickering at the entrance, tension knitting his brows. I followed his gaze, bracing myself for whatever was about to emerge into the flickering light of our hollow. And then I saw it, a flicker of movement, molten shadows pooling together into a figure that morphed in and out of clarity. The creature's eyes glowed fiercely, and the whispers erupted into manic laughter, a cacophony that sent chills down my spine. "Play with us," it beckoned, a twisted grin stretching across its face. "Now," the boy shouted. That I didn't hesitate. Together we dove deeper into the hollow, grasping at roots and dirt, my heart racing as I called into the void. "Where's the key? Please, show us." Desperation fueled my words as I felt the laughter heighten around us, closing in, suffocating, and then, a faint glimmer of light emerged from the very roots, a warmth that felt almost alive. It pulsed, intoxicating and eerie all at once. "There!" I yelled, reaching out for the soft glow. The shadows writhed in agitation, the laughter morphing into a feral shriek. "Grab it!" the boy urged. That I thrust my hand into the light, recoiling as the energy surged, wrapping around my fingers like a silken thread before it coalesced into a small metal key. Its shape was strange, almost otherworldly, glowing with a light that cut through the dark. "I have it!" I shouted, holding it high. "Now what?" "Now we go." His voice was fierce, pulling me back towards the entrance. We stumbled out together, leaving the hollow behind, breaking into the greater expanse of shadows, but the figure loomed larger now, anger radiating from it as the whispers escalated to a maddening crescendo. "You can't escape. You must play." It screeched, and I felt the ground shift, as if the very earth wanted to swallow us whole. "Stay close," I shouted, our hands intertwined as we raced toward the pulsing light. With every step, I could feel the weight of the darkness pressing against me, but the key thrummed in my palm, guiding me. We half to the ground trembled beneath us, and the path ahead flickered, twisting like a mirage. The laughter turned to howls of anger, shrieks that clawed at our sanity. Filled with adrenaline, I fought against the urge to succumb to fear. "The light!" I yelled, aiming for the warmth ahead, struggling to keep the boy at my side. Just as I felt a shadow gripping at my heels, I thrust the key into the gateway that appeared before us, an archway of blinding light shrouded in whispers. As the key turned, the air erupted with a furious howl, and I turned to see the darkness recoiling. "Go! Now!" I urged the boy, and we leaped through. Together, the world around us exploding in a blinding flash of light. I stumbled, grasping at the ground as we rolled into a stark, empty street, the park mere shadows behind us. Panting for breath, we locked eyes, the adrenaline slowly ebbing away. "Are we safe?" he asked, his voice hauntingly small. "I think so," I replied, glancing back at where the park retreated into darkness, ambiguity swelling in my chest. "But, what was it?" The boy shook his head slowly, uncertainty dawning his features. "I don't know. They'll always be looking. Those whispers and shadows, they wanted something from us, I murmured, still feeling the pulsating power of the key in my pocket, a lingering connection to the darkness we had escaped. That he glanced at me, fear flickering in his wide eyes. They play for keeps sometimes, I think it's not over. My heart dropped, realizing that while we could leave that fragmented world behind, the echoes of it would remain. I couldn't shake the feeling that we had only uncovered a part of something larger, something still lurking in the whispers of the night. We were free, but the questions remained. Let us go home, I finally said, desperately wanting to distance myself from the unknown, a world tangled in shadows and voices searching for something lost. And as I walked away, a shiver danced down my spine. I knew that darkness would always be there, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for the next game. And I couldn't help but wonder, as I drove toward the dawn, whether I would ever really escape.